Welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me today is Erik from Overall Makerworks. Why don't you say hi, Erik?
Hi. Hello, Andrew. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here.
All three people that are going to listen to this. I guess I have to do a new Patreon read-in because I hit 5 now, so there's going to be, there's 5 listeners, or at least 5 people paying to listen, I suppose. No. Anyway. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Oh, sure.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, my name's Erik. My tag on Instagram is Overall Makerworks. I grew up on a farm, and then I was in the Air Force for 21 years, and retired from that. And a couple of years ago, I started to get into making online. I've made stuff my whole life, and worked in aviation maintenance. So, I was working with tools, working with my hands, building things, and it eventually went to Instagram. I made a couple things around the house, and people had said I should share what I was doing. So, just before the pandemic, lucky timing, I got into the making community, found everybody else on Instagram who was making things, and decided to just keep sharing what I was doing. So
yeah, it's the whole community thing sure exploded during the whole pandemic time. It's like all of a sudden everybody was, I need something to do and I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, but before the pandemic, it seemed like every woodworking account was Ted's 10,000 plans, and then during the pandemic, we got some real people that started sharing what they're doing. I suppose they had more time on their hands, so.
Yeah, that's about right. I have some friends that work at a local woodworking supply store, right? And I was talking to them about all the tool purchases, and that was the best time of the entire decade. Was that like 6-month period when everything was crazy and they just sold out of everything all the time. Anything they could bring in, they could sell instantly because all the people getting into the hobby and all the people upgrading their tools and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I had to make a table for my sister's camper. The old one was made out of particle board. It got wet and was crumbling. So I went to the store to buy some lumber, and I couldn't find enough lumber of a single species to put together a little 2-foot by 3-foot table for a camper. So I had to make it in stripes of different species for her, which she loved, but still, it was just the shelves were bare.
That's one of those. Yeah. That's one of those situations where you're like, yeah, I intended to do this. This, it's a design feature.
Right. It's an artistic vision.
Exactly. It wasn't desperation at all. It was artisanal.
Yeah, exactly. But
so you're working on anything interesting right now, or is it?
Not right now. So I'm kind of in between things. I suppose I forgot to mention in my introduction, I have some health problems, so it's kind of a chronic fatigue and pain deal, where if I exert myself too much, I get muscle cramping and spasms and have to go lay down and rest up. So I get tired a lot quicker than I think that I should, and just don't have stamina to do anything long term. So I have to work in short periods, which was difficult to adjust to at first, for the topic of this show. It was a big hit to my mental health when my health deteriorated. My physical health deteriorated. My mental health took a toll. So, but so to answer your question, am I working on anything right now? I'm just kind of, I have a couple things that I have to do. We live out in the country, so we have 12 acres and dogs and chickens, and so
nice.
So right now I'm renovating our chicken coop. I insulated the walls, and now I'm rebuilding out the interior. I got the door put in, and now I need to get some nesting boxes built before the little chicks grow up. So that's all I have on the docket for right now.
So where are you at? You're like Midwest, aren't you?
I'm in central Minnesota, so
okay.
A couple hours north of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Okay. So you're You're in the part of the U.S. that gets proper winter then.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. We're Canada light.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My sister used to live in that area too, so I'm familiar with your locale then.
Yeah. Yep. I have a tractor with a snowblower as a necessity. So.
Yeah, yeah. When I had my ranch, I bought a new tractor, and I figured I was gonna if I'm gonna own new equipment, I'm gonna buy all the toys that I want with it, and one of the things was definitely a snowblower. So that makes such a massive difference. Eh?
Oh yeah,
Like these,
definitely.
yeah, people who don't deal with snow for an extended period of time, they just have no concept. But anyway, so you're dealing with like chronic fatigue syndrome or something specific that you're aware of that you want to share. If you don't want to, it's all good too.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it depends which doctor you talk to, and I've seen dozens over the years. So you could call it chronic fatigue syndrome. My current doctor likes to call it fibromyalgia. Um, I do have small nerve fiber neuropathy or polyfiber neuropathy. I forget the order of the words there, but basically, small nerve fibers. I only have about 5% of what a normal person would have for small nerve fibers. So I just have dangling ends of where nerve fibers should be that kind of short circuit and cause pain where it shouldn't be. So it's a
Interesting.
neuromuscular problem, and I'll get very real muscle cramps and spasms because the muscles are trying to react to signals that are imaginary. So it's not fun to deal with. It definitely slows me down quite a bit. But but yeah, I grew up on a farm and then joined the military. So my whole life I was of the inclination and trained to just keep working until the job was done. You start something and you go until the job is done. You don't quit when you're tired. You don't quit when you don't like it anymore. You just keep going. And now I'm on the complete opposite side of the coin where I need to remind myself to stop and take a break before I get tired because if I go until I get tired, then I'm going to be paying for it worse on the flip side. And so my health is kind of upset the whole way I do things in life, which is frustrating.
Yeah, it's a interesting. I grew up on a farm as well, and so yeah, you when the sun comes up and something needs to be done, you're out doing that, and you have breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you have lunch at 5 o'clock if you're lucky, and then you have dinner when you get home at 10 o'clock at night or whatever it is,
Right.
and it's a when you're forced to step back and take some time, it almost feels uncomfortable for you because it's like this isn't who I am. I'm the guy who does stuff. I'm not the guy who watches people do stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's you feel worthless. You spend your life doing things a certain way, and you're used to feeling useful by doing the things that you used to do that you can't do anymore. So, it's you kind of have to reinvent your whole reason for being. Your sense of fulfillment, what makes you happy, because you can't do things the way you used to. It's definitely a challenge. I'm not going to lie to anyone and say that it's fun, but it is what it is. It's you got a choice of dealing with it or not dealing with it, I guess, and I'm finding ways to deal with it, which
Well, that's the most important thing, though, right? Like a lot of people, you see the people who give up, and they
yeah,
just deteriorate, right? Like uh, they just stop living and sit in front of the TV or whatever and die of a heart attack a year and a half later versus the people who take the time to go, yeah, this sucks, and I'm sure it hasn't been like it wasn't the instant mental switch for you. Go, I have chronic pain now. I guess I'm a stay a slow person now, but I'm gonna live my best life. I'm sure it's ups and downs and struggles.
yeah, it definitely was not a quick transition. My issues started 2005 2006 time frame. And they didn't start out serious. At first it was just after I went to the gym I was really tired, more tired than I thought that I should be. And it's slowly progressed. And over time you you keep going to different doctors, and the complaints just keep getting more serious, and the frustration builds. Especially with the slow increase of limitations that I was having. The frustration grew along with the limitations, and it's one of those deals where you just want to fight it. There's something wrong, and you just want to fight against it, and you want to fix the problem because you're a problem solver, and you fight for getting stuff done, and you just kind of lose if you keep going down that road. So you have to take a step to the side, and learn the tools to deal with the new reality that you're facing.
Yeah, it's that whole if you start out with denial, you're just going to kind of push things and make things a little bit worse if you don't stop and reassess.
Exactly. Learning. Everybody has their different things that they do to learn how to deal with, their own situation in life. Because, I'm dealing with chronic pain, so what works for me isn't necessarily what'll work for somebody who just, is stressed out at their job. Who's, and they're two different things, but mentally, they kind of have the same impact. Where you're just not happy with your situation and you don't know what to do to change it. It's not easy to recognize that you're in that position and to take that sideways step and to go to therapy and learn how to meditate and try yoga, even though you don't like it and you quit. It's just all these different things. It's trying all these things that normally you wouldn't have done and you hadn't done in your life. Now they come to a different level where it's something that you should keep your mind open to. And honestly, I think that people should look in that direction before they need to. With me, like I was saying, I just fought until I was kind of at my last thread of the frayed rope. And I was in a pretty low place before I decided that I needed to go to therapy and get help and learn how to deal with the situation as it was. And my life would have been easier if I would have gone earlier, if I would have changed course before it got to the end of the road.
That's kind of why I wanted to start this podcast, is to normalize that conversation, right? Because there's stigma around mental health. Like oh, you got mental problems, you have depression, you have anxiety, and the unfortunate reality of it is so many people view that, well, it's all in your head. Well, obviously it's all in your head because that's where it's coming from, right? But that doesn't make it any less real.
Exactly.
And so and you're right. So many people go down that path of exactly what you do. Like you deny it, you push it, you whatever, you ignore it until you're at that rope's end moment, and you either have the choice to give up or you have the choice to do something about it. And to do something about it is a lot of work. But it's good for you.
Yeah.
But if people would normalize the mental health aspect of their life, like you and I growing up on the farm sort of thing, you push and you work until the job is done. And sometimes the reality is you can be more productive by saying, you know what, I'm done the job right now. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back refreshed and work twice as fast after an hour break.
Right.
And it's the same with mental health. If people say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit low. I'm not depressed right now. I'm not thinking of taking my life. I'm not, I'm just, maybe it's a slow day. Maybe it's just I need a little bit of coaching, for example, just somebody to talk to about the day's problems and get rid of it.
Yeah.
If you normalize that as a part of your daily routine, you're less likely to get into the state of, crap, I'm at my wit's end, now what, right?
Right, exactly. It doesn't have to get to that point where you're, just in a bad place. If you're just having a day where you're not happy, there's things that you can do mentally, mental exercises to reassess, the situation that you're in and the good things that you do have in life, and to learn happiness, because happiness can come naturally, but it's also something you can learn to, appreciate things and become happy with the things that you do have, because everybody has something. It's just a lot of times you don't recognize, or the things that you do have aren't obvious, so you're not noticing them, so you think that you're not happy. It's
Yeah, it all comes down to what you're focusing on, right? Like if you're
Right.
focusing
Yeah.
on the negative aspects of I'm in pain, and you focus on I'm in pain, then that's what you're going to notice, and you're going to reinforce that in your mind. And if you focus on the positive things, it doesn't mean you're not in pain,
Right.
but then you have that mental switch of, well, I'm in pain, but, and it kind of negates it a little bit.
Yeah. And it's not easy to learn those new habits. And yeah, and that's what I was trying to say earlier is it's good to build those habits earlier because it'll help you shift your course so so you can build your skills earlier when it's not necessary or not immediate, and you're not having to scramble at the last minute to figure something out when it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's like physical exercise, right? Like it's the same thing. Is you get that? Well, I don't need to lift 100 pounds. I don't need to be a power lifter. But fast forward when you're 75, 80 years old, and you've degenerated, because as you age you degenerate.
Yeah.
But if you have if you have three times the capacity that you needed to have, you have three times the space to lose before you're disabled.
Yeah. Yeah. The analogy that I heard once was it's like somebody who has back problems. Everybody knows somebody who's had back problems or had them themselves, where you just get out of bed one day and you just can't stand up straight. Well, it's not nothing happened when you were sleeping overnight. It's 20 years of poor posture and bad ergonomics, and slowly building up over years and years and years until you get to that point where now you can't stand up straight. But if you had gone back in time and sat up straight and lifted boxes properly, and all the things that you're supposed to do but never really quite managed to do quite the way you're supposed to do them, you wouldn't have got to that place where you couldn't get out of bed in the morning you know
Yeah, in my clinical stuff, it's what I tell people all the time is, yeah, the 10 year ago you, if you had done just 2 minute things,
Right.
you wouldn't be in this position. And there's quite often I'll give people like a treatment regime for some sort of physical pain that they're dealing with, right? And it's nine times out of 10, you're right. It's a long term chronic bad posture, lifting wrong, whatever it is, right? And the fix is a long term small change.
Yeah.
And so, I'll treat somebody and they'll be feeling better. And okay, you doing the exercise? Yeah, I'm doing the exercise. Okay, see you later, right? And then 6 months down the road, and they come to the office again,
And they weren't doing the
and
exercise.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's the same thing that you treated me for last time. Well, were you doing the exercise? Well, I was feeling great, and then I forgot, and then I stopped doing it, and yeah, and it's the same thing. And that's
Yeah.
where with mental health, it's the same way. There are simple things you can do to improve your mental health, and one of them is like journaling, for example. Just at the end of the day, saying, I write down, you know what went well for me today and what I'm going to do good tomorrow. It doesn't even have to be you don't have to record your life history. It's just taking a little bit of 3 minutes to be mindful about your day, and assess and reassess, and makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not perfect. I'm still learning all this stuff and still trying to turn around how I do things. But every time where I find myself, you know, frustrated and cranky and angry, if I take a step to the side, a step back, I'm like, I haven't been practicing my mindfulness. I haven't been kind to myself. I have been pushing myself too hard. I have not been taking my breaks. I haven't, I can I can list all the steps that got me to the point where I'm at, which doesn't stop me
So
from doing it again, a couple of weeks down the road, but maybe someday I'll get there.
yeah. So what are some of the strategies that you use? Like, what are some of the things you do to kind of keep yourself going, feeling good, or trying to keep going and try to feel good?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for me. With the situation where I'm in. Physical activities make me feel mentally better. I feel happy when I'm working with my hands. I feel a sense of accomplishment when I build something. but I get really tired and worn out physically very quickly. So if I just sit in my recliner for 3 days, I feel physically fine, but I get a little bit stir crazy, and so I aim for a balance. I do a little bit of something that'll make me feel good physically. I take a break and rest, and then I do something that'll make me feel better mentally. I do a small task. I work with my hands or for something, and it's just something that just takes 20, 30 minutes. That's good enough for the day. I feel I get that sense of accomplishment. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I don't have to build a structure or a barn or, I don't have to move mountains. The other day, I sat down and took a piece of scrap leather and made a little keychain toothpick holder, because my wife is always, when we're out, she's like, "Do you have a toothpick?" And I never have a toothpick, but she always needs one. So I made a little toothpick holder that she could put on her keychain. And it's something simple. It took me half an hour, and it was just a little scrap that was laying around. But it's sometimes little things like that, looking around and recognizing that it's not even a need. A piece of spinach in between your teeth is not going to kill you, but you're a lot happier if you have a toothpick. And when you're getting that toothpick, if you're pulling it out of a custom leather pouch that your husband made for you, you smile a little bit, and then everyone's happier. Where in the past I wouldn't have taken the time to do something like that. I would have been out, building structures. But so it's
Yes, sometimes we get into that headspace either way, like where if you're not doing something big and dramatic, you're not doing anything.
right.
And and that's, I think that's part of the mindset switch too with mental health is it doesn't, you don't have to be dreadfully depressed in order to seek mental health or mental help.
Right.
But so it's again going back to the little things. You're doing the little things, and those little things have as much meaning as the big things too, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The size of the thing that you make, the scope of the thing that you make, that has no correlation to the happiness that it brings to the recipient, whether the recipient is yourself or somebody else. That how big the thing is isn't what matters, or how complex the thing isn't what matters. It's the fact that you took the time to do something for that person in the physical form of making a thing, and
Yeah, it's I ran across a parenting thing not too long ago. I think applies just about everywhere. So is a Dr. Justin Colson. He's a family therapist in Australia,
okay.
and he has this thing that he always says. He says children spell the word love time.
Hmm.
And I think most people do when you stop and think about it, because
Yeah.
I mean, most people, if they're given a choice between spending time with somebody and receiving a gift, they're probably going to spend time with somebody.
Yeah.
And most people, when you, especially with like little stuff like a toothpick holder, for example, I think people, that's more meaningful to most people, because it's you connecting with them on a, I'm connecting you with on a very small, I noticed a very small need for you, and I took some of my time to make it.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure you could go to the dollar store, spend $1, and pick up something maybe not quite as nice, but just as functional.
Yep.
But is that it's just not the same thing.
No,
like
right.
people recognize that time that you've spent.
Right, because making things is your time. You're using your time, you're prioritizing your time to make that thing for that person. It's because time is the gift. People, when they say they don't have time to do something, everybody has the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours in the day. If somebody doesn't have time to do something, that means they haven't prioritized it above the other things that they're doing. So, when you give somebody your time, that is a gift. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's like when smartphones started doing the whole time usage thing, you know,
I hate
like,
that.
well, it shocked me honestly because
Yeah.
I've never self-identified as somebody who uses a lot of tech. Like obviously I'm on social media and I do that, but beyond that I don't spend a lot of time on my phone. Like I don't have any games. I don't have like I've got my social media and I have my business stuff on my phone, nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I never think of this as I spend a lot of time. And then when Apple started doing the screen time statistics, I was shocked at how much I actually spent doing things on it. And it blew my mind. And so you're right. Like there's that people people have the time, they just don't make the time or take the time to do the thing that they should be doing.
Right. They choose to spend their time in whatever way they choose to spend it, and it's you can choose to do some things that are more productive than other things. So,
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with social media either, right? Like it's not.
oh no.
It's like everything else though. Is at what if it becomes detrimental to other things in your life, or you feel it's detrimental to other things in your life, then you're probably using it too much. And it's social media, alcohol, whatever, food,
Yeah.
any of these things that you're consuming to excess and it's damaging other things, it becomes a problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, social media. It's a love-hate relationship. I love it. I get to connect with people like you and have conversations like this, and but I also spend too much time scrolling and looking at things that other people are doing, feeling feeling a little bit bad that I'm not able to do that, or I wish I could do that, or instead of going and doing things that I can do. So it's definitely a that double-edged sword where you take the good parts from it and try to limit the not so great parts of it. And, but
Yeah,
it's a challenge.
and that's the yeah, and that's the that is the hard thing about social media, especially when you start going down the rabbit hole of like, holy crap, I wish I could do that, or
Oh,
wow, how do they do
yeah.
that type of stuff, and you starting to feel inadequate about your own skills, and you have to remember that it's the same as everything else. Is the people who are doing phenomenal work typically have been doing it for a long time,
Right.
and they've put in hundreds and thousands of hours.
Exactly. And they're showing you the best possible angle, and they're not showing you the gap in the joint that's on the far side that you can't see. And it's you see you put your best out. Yeah, that's what I do. I don't generally take pictures of my mistakes. I probably should, but I like to present the best angle, as much as I can. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't know. Do you follow Craig Thibodeau at all, or do you know Craig? Have you seen any of his work?
it sounds familiar, but I'm not placing it.
Does veneer and puzzle boxes.
Okay.
He does. Yeah, every time I see his stuff, it's just mind blowing, and I would aspire to have that level of skill, but then he's making these puzzle boxes that you know 24-inch square sort of thing that he's selling for $80,000-$90,000, and
Wow.
but then he spends 9 months or 10 months doing it, so it's a totally justified price.
Sure. Yeah.
But then you as a hobbyist, you look at it and you go, oh wow, I wish I could do that. Well, you can if you spend
If
10,000 hours
you
learning how to
dedicate
do
your
it.
entire life to it, you can do it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
But
so yeah, thanks for having a conversation about that, because that's something that
yeah.
a lot of people I think have. It's easy to see a disability in somebody who looks disabled, right? Like if you're missing your arm or you're missing your
Right.
leg, or you got the whatever hunchback or something going on, some a physical deformity is easy to see, and it's easy to mentalize. Well, I could see how you know opening a door would be very hard with no hands. But what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a lot of people in your situation, for example, where you have too much physical exertion causes pain, causes fatigue, and limits you. And so, I mean, maybe not opening a door, but there's still those things that well, I can do that. There doesn't look to be anything wrong with you. It must be all in your head, or you're faking it, or nonsense like that, right?
Yeah.
And so people need to understand that there is non-visible disabilities that affect people as well.
Right. Yeah. I that's exactly right. I hate the term disabled, even though, by all intents and purposes, I am. The Veterans Administration rates me as disabled, and it, but I don't want to be. So, and because my disability is mostly invisible, I can do a pretty good job of hiding it and faking it. And you know, when I go out, I appear normal, and people don't see me the next day when I'm recovering from whatever I did. So it's, yeah, disabled people are out there, and you may not realize it. And people have, their own abilities in their own ways, where they can do things, they can do certain things and can't do certain things, and we all have our own unique, mixture of what that is. But I just encourage everyone, whatever your situation is to take the time to find the little things that bring you joy. It's not the big things that bring you joy, it's the little things that bring you joy. So spend the time to find those things, and work on it, because it is work, but we can all do it. So
Yeah, I've talked to a few people that, you know, I personally, when it comes to like shop and making stuff, I have a great setup. Maybe not, I don't have as much space as you, but I have a standalone shop, and it's 1,000 square feet, so I have a decent amount of space,
yeah,
and it's far enough away from the house and far enough away from the neighbors that I can do whatever I want at whatever time of night, right? So
yeah,
if I want to be out there running a planer at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to be bothering anybody. But I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have that luxury, and so taking the time to do like little chip carving, or something that
sure,
you can literally sit on your armchair in your living room. If you've got a little bit of a something to collect the chips, you can just sit there and whittle away,
yeah,
and it's nice and quiet, and it's contained, and you don't necessarily have to be making big dramatic things that everybody can see in order to be making, in order to be finding fulfillment in that making.
yeah. That's exactly right.
Well, Eric, thanks for joining me,
Oh yeah,
and thank you for sharing your perspective on what it's like to be living with some chronic issues, and I hope it helps somebody who's listening.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and like I said, I hope a bit of the conversation helps somebody out there somewhere. That's the whole goal, and I think your podcast is important.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So if you could sum up our conversation, sum up the things that we talked about and things that you're thinking about, what would you tell people? This is the thing you should do.
Spend time to find what brings you joy. It is that simple. You have to spend your time. You have to recognize the things that bring you happiness. Put the work in to find the thing that makes you happy.
I have a list of podcast ideas and things that I'm slowly building up with time, and one of my 5 Minute Monday topics is about scheduling,
Okay. Yeah.
and it was inspired by a statement that somebody made, and I forget who made it, but he basically said that if you don't prioritize your time, somebody else will.
Right. Right.
And so, going along with your summation there, it's if you let other people control your time, whether it's work, whether it's social media, whether it's a television program, if you're giving your control to somebody else will always take it.
That's exactly
I mean,
right.
that's why, the whole attention economy. That's what social media is built on. That's what advertising is built on. Is it's capturing your attention. And so, until you take the time to focus on the things that you want to do and the things that bring you fulfillment, somebody else is always going to be taking your time, and you're never going to have the time. So you have to make it for yourself.
That's exactly right. Well, you always do have the time, whether you choose to use it that way or not. You always have the time. We all have the same amount of time every day,
Yeah.
24 hours.
So let's make the choice to use it, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and I'm gonna download a recording of this podcast and play it back to myself because I think this is good advice for me that I need to hear.
That's actually one of the things that I appreciate about editing these. Actually, is going back through and going, yeah, you know what? That's good advice. It helps me remind myself
Right.
every time.
Right.
So tell everybody where they can find you, your social media handle, and all that jazz.
Yep. So on Instagram, I'm overall MakerWorks, and I haven't got into the YouTube videography yet. That's a stretch goal. A couple years down the road, maybe. So.
Well, I will subscribe to your channel when you do.
All right. Sounds
But-
good.
So thanks for joining me, and thanks for those of you who are listening. If you found something that was impactful for you, make sure that you share it with somebody within 24 hours. That will help to solidify that in your mind, and it will also help the other person that you shared it with. So again, thank you for joining me, Erik, and we will sign off.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the founding members of the Workshop Therapy Patreon family: Erik of Overall MakerWorks, Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts, Brad of Brad's Customs, Matthew Serio from Arciano Serio, and The Grant Alexander. If you want to join on Patreon to support the show or just say thank you, I'd appreciate it.